3 years later, the man who told me I had been the worst part of his life would stand in front of me at a Christmas Eve gala and discover that the woman he had thrown away was married to the one man he had spent months trying to impress. But that night I knew none of that. All I knew was that my husband's phone had lit up on our kitchen counter at 11:17 p.m., and another woman had written, "I'm still wearing the perfume you said you liked." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then it lit up again. "Wish you were here instead of playing husband at home." For a few seconds I couldn't move. Jason's laptop was open in front of me. I had been organizing invoices for a client presentation he was giving the next morning because, less than an hour earlier, he had walked into the kitchen and dropped a folder beside my elbow. "Can you clean this up for me?" I had looked at the clock. "Tonight? You're better at catching mistakes than Lauren." Lauren was his assistant. I should have laughed at the irony. Instead, I had said, "Fine. Give me 20 minutes. That was who I had been in our marriage. "Fine. Sure. I'll handle it. Don't worry. Go to bed. I've got it." 5 years of marriage, and I had become so useful that Jason barely noticed I was a person. The bathroom door opened. Jason came out drying his hair with a towel. He saw me holding his phone and stopped. His eyes flicked from my face to the screen. There was no panic. No guilt. The first thing he did was frown. "Why are you going through my phone?" I actually laughed. Came out small and strange. "I wasn't. You're holding it." It lit up. "So." I turned the screen toward him. "Who is Vanessa?" His expression changed, but only for half a second. Then he tossed the towel onto a chair. "She works for me." "I know she works for you." Vanessa Morgan had joined Carter Distribution Solutions 8 months earlier as head of public relations. She was 34, polished, loud in a way people called confident when a beautiful woman did it, and very good at making Jason feel like the smartest man in every room. At the company holiday mixer the year before, I had watched her put a hand on his arm and say, "You really built all this from nothing." Jason had smiled as if no one had ever understood him so deeply. I had been standing 6 feet away. Nothing. That was apparently what I was. I held up the phone. "Does your PR director usually tell you what perfume she's wearing at 11 o'clock at night?" Jason's jaw tightened. "Emily, don't do this." "Do what?" "Turn something stupid into a crisis." I stared at him. "She said she wishes you were with her instead of playing husband at home. She flirts." "And you?" He looked away. That was the first answer. I stepped back from the counter. "How long?" His eyes snapped toward me. "There's nothing going on." "That wasn't what I asked." "Because your question is ridiculous." "Then answer it." He sighed and rubbed his forehead as if I were exhausting him. That gesture hurt more than I expected. He had done it more and more lately. Every question I asked became an inconvenience. Every hurt feeling became drama. Every request for basic respect became proof that I was somehow holding him back. "Emily," he said slowly, "I have a company with 47 employees. I'm dealing with expansion, lenders, contracts, investors. I cannot come home and get interrogated because Vanessa sent one stupid text." "One." His mouth tightened. I looked at him. "Give me the phone." "What?" "If it's one stupid text, give me the phone." He didn't. We both noticed. I felt something inside me go very still. Jason crossed his arms. "This is exactly what I've been talking about." "What have you been talking about?" "You've been emotional for months." I blinked. "Emotional?" "Yes. Because my husband barely comes home?" "I work." "Because you cancel dinner and don't tell me?" "I work." "Because last week you introduced me to one of your investors as the charity wife and laughed?" "It was a joke." "No one laughed except you." "There." He pointed at me. "That. You take everything personally." I stared at his finger. 5 years earlier, that same hand had been shaking when he signed the lease on a tiny warehouse outside Charlotte. He had been 29, terrified and broke. I had been 26 and convinced love meant believing in someone harder than they believed in themselves. The first year Carter Distribution barely survived. I paid our rent. I covered health insurance. I bought groceries with my Bright Step salary, while Jason reinvested almost everything into the company. When one of his first major clients delayed payment and he couldn't cover payroll, I sold the diamond earrings my grandmother had left me. Jason had found out after the money hit our account. He had stood in our old apartment holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. One day he had whispered, "I'm going to give you everything back." I had laughed against his chest. "I don't need everything. I just need us to be okay." Now he looked at me like I was a problem he had outgrown. I put his phone down. Are you sleeping with her? His face went blank. Jesus? Emily, are you? No. Have you kissed her? Silence. I felt my stomach twist. Jason. He picked up the phone. You're being dramatic. I followed him into the living room. That isn't an answer. He turned sharply. Fine. She kissed me once. I stopped. He immediately added, and I told her it couldn't happen again. When? A few weeks ago. Where? Does it matter? Yes. At a client dinner. You told me that dinner ended after midnight because the client wouldn't stop talking. His face hardened. I'm not doing a deposition in my own house. I almost said our house. Then I remembered how often lately he called everything his. His company, his connections, his money, his schedule, his success. Apparently I was just the woman living near it. I said quietly, did you kiss her back? Jason looked at me for a long moment. Then he laughed once under his breath. You know what? This is why I don't tell you things. I felt my face go cold. You cheated on me and somehow this is about my reaction? I did not cheat on you. You kissed another woman. She kissed me. And you didn't tell me. Because I knew you'd act like this. I stared at him. That sentence did something the messages had not. It made the whole shape of our marriage suddenly visible. Jason no longer needed to deny what he did. He only needed to make my response look unreasonable. I thought about dinner with our friends 2 weeks earlier. Matt had asked whether I was still with Bright Steps. Before I could answer, Jason had laughed. Yeah, Emily likes jobs where nobody expects her to make real money. The table had gone quiet. I had forced a smile. He's kidding. On the drive home, I told him he had embarrassed me. Jason had rolled his eyes. You're too sensitive. The month before that, I had bought a navy dress for one of his business dinners after he complained that my clothes looked too non-profit. When I walked downstairs, he looked me over and said, you don't have to try so hard. There was no winning anymore. If I stayed the woman he married, I embarrassed him. If I changed for him, I was trying too hard. I had spent months adjusting myself to fit inside a space that kept getting smaller. That night, I finally stopped. I want you to sleep somewhere else. Jason actually smiled. You're kicking me out over a text? Over the fact that I don't believe you. His smile disappeared. This is my house too. Then take the guest room. He shook his head. You need help, Emily. I looked at him. There it was. Not angry. Not hysterical. Not screaming. And somehow I was still the unstable one. What does that mean? It means you haven't been yourself. According to who? He hesitated. That was enough. Who have you been talking to about me? No one. Jason. My friends know things haven't been easy. I felt my pulse begin to pound. What did you tell them? That you've been struggling. With what? He shrugged. Your mood. Your insecurity. My schedule. The company. My insecurity. You resent what my work requires. I almost couldn't speak. I helped build your work. Jason's face changed. Not guilt. Annoyance. I knew we'd get here. Get where? You taking credit for my company. I didn't say it was my company. You always do this. You remind me about paying rent 5 years ago. You remind me about helping with invoices. You remind me about those earrings. I have never once asked you to repay me for those earrings. You don't have to. You make sure I remember. My eyes burned. When his father had a heart procedure 2 years earlier, Jason had been in Atlanta closing a contract. I sat beside Robert for 9 hours. When Linda had knee replacement surgery, I took vacation days to drive her to physical therapy because Jason was too slammed. I never kept score. But apparently Jason had. He had taken every sacrifice I made and turned it into evidence that I was trying to own him. I said, I think you should go to the guest room. He scoffed. Fine. Then he looked at the open laptop. Did you finish the Henderson file? I stared at him. He waited. That was the moment something in me finally broke. Not when I saw Vanessa's message. Not when he admitted the kiss. When my husband stood in front of me after destroying my trust and still expected me to finish his paperwork. I closed the laptop. No. His brows pulled together. My meeting is at 8. Then you should probably get up early. For the first time that night, Jason looked genuinely shocked. I walked upstairs and locked the bedroom door. I did not sleep. At 6 in the morning, I called in sick to Bright Steps. At 9, I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Rachel Monroe. I didn't tell Jason. Not yet. I told myself I was only getting information. I still believe there might be something left to save. Rachel listened for 20 minutes without interrupting. Then she asked a question that changed everything. Do you have access to your joint financial records? Yes. Business records? Some. I used to help with bookkeeping. Used to? Jason moved most of it in-house when the company grew. Emily, before you confront him again, download what you legally have access to. Joint accounts, tax returns, statements, retirement accounts. Don't access anything you aren't authorized to access. My stomach tightened. Why? Because if this turns into a divorce, information has a way of becoming harder to find. I hated the way that sounded. Like preparation for war. But that afternoon I followed her advice. And within an hour I found 3 transfers I did not recognize. Then another. Then a bonus payment that had never appeared in our household account. The next day, Rachel looked through the records and frowned. This doesn't prove he hid marital assets. My heart dropped. But it tells me we need more documents. I looked down at my hands. He thought this far ahead? I don't know. But I did. Or at least I was beginning to. 2 days later, a mutual friend called me. Her voice was awkward. Emily, I don't know if I should tell you this. Tell me. Jason's been saying you've been having a hard time. I closed my eyes. What exactly has he said? That you're unhappy. That you get angry when he works late. That you've been unstable. The word hit me like a slap. There it was again. I thanked her and hung up. That evening I printed everything. The messages I had photographed. The account transfers. The statements. Notes from my meeting with Rachel. I placed them on the dining table and texted Jason. Come home. We need to talk. He arrived 40 minutes later. He saw the papers before he took off his coat. His expression hardened. So you finally got a lawyer. I stared at him. He did not ask what the papers were. He already knew. You knew? Jason pulled out a chair. Emily, can we please handle this like adults? Something inside me went cold. Were you planning to leave me? He exhaled. I've been thinking about it. How long? Does it matter? Yes. Months. I nodded slowly. And Vanessa? He looked away. That was answer number 2. Did you move money because you thought I'd come after the company? Jason's jaw tightened. I built that company. We were married when you built it. I knew you'd say that. We paid our bills with my salary for almost 2 years. And I've supported us since. That's not the point. It is exactly the point. He leaned forward. You think because you helped me when I was starting out, you're entitled to what I created. My throat tightened. I never said that. You don't have to. I stared at the man across from me. I barely recognized him. And suddenly I did not want to argue about money. I did not want to argue about Vanessa. I wanted one answer. Just one. I asked quietly, what were these 5 years to you? Jason frowned. What? Our marriage. Emily. No. Answer me. He pushed his chair back. You want honesty? Yes. He looked straight at me. Being with you was the worst period of my life. Everything inside me stopped. Jason kept talking. I was broke. I was stressed. I was constantly worried about money. I hated who I was back then. I stared at him. He either did not understand or did not care that he had just taken the hardest years of our marriage, the years I had carried with him, and made me the symbol of everything he hated about himself. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry in front of him. I nodded. Okay. Jason blinked. Okay. Yes. I stood. Then I won't make you live another day of it. His face changed. Emily, you want out? I picked up the folder Rachel had prepared. You're out. For the first time since Vanessa's message appeared on his phone, Jason looked uncertain. Maybe he thought I would beg. Maybe he thought I would scream. Maybe he thought I would spend months proving that I deserved to stay married to him. I didn't. The divorce took months. It was ugly in quiet ways. Documents, lawyers, financial disclosures, people choosing sides. Jason officially started dating Vanessa before the paperwork was even final, though both of them insisted nothing physical had happened before our separation. I stopped asking. Rachel helped me recover the share of marital property I was legally entitled to. I did not destroy Jason's company. I did not stand outside his office calling him a cheater. I did not post screenshots. I signed the papers. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of Charlotte. And then when no one was watching, I fell apart. For 6 months, I wondered if Jason had been right. Maybe I was too ordinary. Maybe my job really was small. Maybe supporting someone was not the same as being someone worth choosing. One night I found an old photograph of Jason and me from the first year of his company. He had his arm around me. We both looked exhausted. We also looked happy. I stared at it until I started crying. I was there, I whispered to the empty apartment. I was there for all of it. I did not know that half a year later, at a children's fundraising event, a 7-year-old boy would deliberately dump apple juice across my paperwork and glare at me like I had personally ruined his life. I did not know his name was Noah Reed, and I certainly did not know that the irritated father rushing toward us was Nathan Reed. At that point, Nathan was just a stranger. Noah was just an angry little boy, and I was still a divorced woman trying to figure out who I was when no one needed me to save them. 3 years later, that boy would call me mom in front of Jason, and the man Jason had spent months trying to get a meeting with would be holding our daughter. But before any of that could happen, I had to learn something Jason had spent years making me forget. I was not valuable because of what I could sacrifice. I was valuable before I sacrificed anything at all. The first time Noah Reed met me, he dumped an entire cup of apple juice across my paperwork and asked if I was trying to marry his father. I should probably have taken that as a warning. Instead, I looked down at the sticky forms dripping onto my shoes, then back at the 7-year-old boy standing in front of me with his arms crossed. He did not look sorry, not even a little. His dark hair was falling into his eyes, and his mouth was set in a hard line that looked strangely adult on such a young face. "Did you do that on purpose?" I asked. "Yes." The honesty surprised me. A man's voice came sharply from behind him. "Noah." The boy's shoulders stiffened. I looked up. A tall man in a charcoal jacket was walking toward us, his expression somewhere between embarrassment and exhaustion. "Noah Reed," he said. "Apologize." "No." The man closed his eyes briefly. "Noah." I said no. People nearby had started pretending not to listen. I knew that look. Adults loved watching other people's children misbehave. The man crouched beside his son. "You don't throw things on people." "I didn't throw it. You poured it." "That's different." "Noah." The boy looked at me instead. "You're another one." I blinked. "Another what?" "Woman trying to marry my dad." The man looked horrified. "Noah." I held up a hand. "It's okay." The boy immediately narrowed his eyes. "See, they always say that." I almost smiled. "They? The women?" His father stood. "I am so sorry." I grabbed a stack of napkins from the refreshment table. "You don't have to apologize for him."
I absolutely do.
"No, he does." Noah looked offended. I crouched down until we were eye level. "You don't have to like me." He frowned. "I don't." "Okay." That clearly wasn't the answer he expected. "And I'm not trying to marry your dad." "Good. But you still ruined my paperwork." His eyes dropped toward the juice-soaked pages. So if you did it on purpose, you should help me clean it up." His father gave me a quick look. Noah stared at me for a long moment. Then he snatched several napkins off the table. "I'm only doing this because Dad is going to make me. That works for me." His father coughed into his fist. I suspected he was hiding a laugh. Noah looked up sharply. "What?" "Nothing," the man said. "You're smiling." "I'm not." "You are." I handed Noah another napkin. "He definitely is." The boy gave me a suspicious look, but he helped wipe the table. That was how I met Nathan Reed. At the time, the name meant nothing to me. He was just Noah's father, a tired man at a Bright Steps fundraising event whose son had apparently declared war on every unmarried woman within a 20-foot radius. When the mess was mostly cleaned, Nathan extended his hand. "Nathan." "Emily, I'm really sorry. You've said that. I'll probably say it again." Noah groaned. "Can we go?" Nathan looked down at him. "After you apologize." Noah scowled. We waited. Finally he mumbled, "Sorry." "For?" He looked at his father like he had been betrayed. Nathan lifted his eyebrows. Noah turned back to me. "For pouring juice on your stuff." "Thank you. That doesn't mean I like you. I'll try to recover." His mouth twitched. Just barely. Then he walked away. Nathan watched him go inside. He usually gives people at least 10 minutes before declaring them enemies. "I feel special." "You shouldn't." I laughed. It was the first time in months I had laughed with a man without wondering what he expected from me. That realization bothered me more than it should have. So when Nathan asked if he could replace the ruin folders, I gave him the Bright Steps office number instead of my personal number. Boundary. I was learning the word. Slowly. 2 weeks later, I walked into a board meeting and discovered exactly who Nathan Reed was. My coworker Denise leaned toward me and whispered, "Please tell me you knew." Knew what? That's Nathan Reed. I looked toward the end of the table. Nathan was reviewing a packet while Noah sat outside the conference room with a tablet. Yes, I know his name. Denise stared at me. Emily. What? Reed Holdings? I waited. She stared harder. Nathan Reed. Reed Holdings. Hospitality, logistics, property development, community investment. That Nathan Reed. I felt stupid. Oh, that's all you've got? I met him at the fundraiser. You met him? His son assaulted my paperwork with apple juice. Denise blinked. I need you to explain your life to me sometime. Nathan looked up and caught me staring. He smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough to say he remembered. I immediately looked back at my notes. After the meeting, he found me near the elevators. You survived. Barely. Any lasting apple-related trauma? I can't look at juice boxes anymore. That's unfortunate. Noah's prepared a written defense. I'm sure it's very convincing. Nathan smiled, then hesitated. Can I buy you coffee? I looked at him. He noticed my expression. Just coffee. You're a donor. His brows rose. That sounded dangerous. I don't date donors. I didn't say date. You were about to. His smile widened. You always this suspicious? Recently. That answer changed something in his face. The teasing faded. Fair enough. He stepped back. No pressure. That mattered. Jason had never accepted no gracefully. A no from me had always become a negotiation. Why not? What's your problem? Why are you making this difficult? Nathan just said, fair enough. Then he left. For some reason that stayed with me. Over the next 2 months, I saw him occasionally through Bright Steps events. He never pushed. Noah did though. Not in a friendly way. The second time he saw me, he walked up and said, "You're still here. I work here." Oh, he looked disappointed. The third time he asked, "Did Dad ask you out?" I nearly choked on my coffee. Noah. What? That's not your business. It is if you say yes. I didn't. He studied my face. Why? Because I didn't want to. He seemed surprised by that. Most children believe their parents are the center of the universe. Noah apparently believed every woman within a 50-mile radius was waiting to marry Nathan. I said, "Your dad seems nice." He is. But I'm allowed to say no. Noah thought about it, then nodded once. Okay. It was the first time he looked at me without suspicion. A month later, Bright Steps received an emergency call from Noah's school. Nathan was stuck in Atlanta. Noah had a high fever and had been taken to the hospital because he nearly fainted during class. The school had reached Nathan, but he was still over 2 hours away. I was listed as an approved contact through the youth program Noah attended. When Denise found me, she looked worried. They can't get him to cooperate. Where's his nanny? Out of town. Nathan's sister is driving in from Raleigh. I didn't think. I grabbed my purse. When I arrived, Noah was sitting upright in the hospital bed, red-faced and furious. A nurse was holding a thermometer. I said no. Noah. No. He saw me in the doorway. His expression changed. Emily, hi. What are you doing here? Apparently you're terrorizing medical professionals. I am not. The nurse gave me a look. I raised an eyebrow. No. Noah crossed his arms. They keep touching me. That's inconvenient in a hospital. I want my dad. I know. His eyes filled immediately. That was the first moment I stopped seeing the sharp little boy and saw the frightened child underneath. I pulled a chair closer, but not too close. He's coming. What if he doesn't? He is. You don't know that. I talked to him 10 minutes ago. His face softened. You did? Yes. What did he say? That you're brave. Noah rolled his eyes. He didn't say that. You're right. He said you're a pain in the ass. The nurse made a choking sound. Noah stared at me. Then he laughed. Dad wouldn't say that. No. He said he loves you and he's coming as fast as he can. The laugh disappeared. He looked down at the blanket. Mom got sick in a hospital. There it was. The thing underneath everything. I didn't say don't worry. I didn't say nothing bad is going to happen. I had learned after my divorce how insulting empty reassurance could feel. Instead I asked, is that what you're thinking about? He nodded. She didn't come home. I moved my chair a little closer. I'm sorry. He looked at me. Dad says she was sick for a long time. How old were you? 3. Do you remember her? A little. What do you remember? He thought. She sang bad. I smiled. Bad? Really bad. That sounds useful. He almost smiled too. Then the nurse stepped forward. Can I take your temperature now? Noah looked at me. I shrugged. Seems reasonable. He sighed dramatically. Fine. By the time Nathan arrived, Noah had been given fluids and medication and was half asleep. Nathan came through the door looking like he had run the last mile. He went straight to the bed. Hey buddy. Noah opened his eyes. Dad. Nathan took his hand. I'm here. I know. His eyes moved toward me. Emily stayed. Nathan looked at me. You didn't have to. I stood. I know. He looked confused. That made me smile. I'm going to get coffee. You can stay. No. His expression shifted. Not offended. Just curious. Noah needs you. Picked up my purse. He was waiting for his dad, not me. That night I stayed until after midnight anyway. Not in Noah's room. Mostly in the hallway making calls to his school, updating Denise, finding something Nathan could eat. At one point Nathan came out holding 2 vending machine coffees. He handed me one. This is terrible. I took a sip. You're right. Still not technically a date. Definitely not. He sat beside me. For a few moments neither of us spoke. Then he said, his mother's name was Rachel. I looked at him. She died of ovarian cancer.
I'm sorry.
He was 3. Sometimes I think he remembers more than he says. That would make hospitals scary. Everything is scary to him if it involves losing someone. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face. I've handled it badly. You love him. That doesn't automatically make me good at this. That answer surprised me. Jason had considered love a defense. I work this much because I love you. I'm doing this for us. You should understand because you're my wife. Nathan seemed to understand that loving someone and treating them well were separate things. He stared at the coffee cup. I dated someone a year after Rachel died. How did Noah take it? He put salt in her coffee. I covered my mouth. It wasn't funny. It's a little funny. Nathan sighed. It was also expensive coffee. I laughed. Then he grew serious again. I've spent so long trying to make him feel safe that sometimes I think I've made him believe he gets to decide whether I'm allowed to have a life. That happens. You sound like you've thought about it. I work with kids. Right. He looked at me. And you? What about me? Why are you suspicious of coffee invitations? I went still. Nathan immediately said, you don't have to answer. Again. No pressure. That made me answer. I was married. His eyes flicked to my left hand. Was? Divorced. How long? A little over a year. He waited. I appreciated that too. So I gave him the simplest version. My ex-husband decided I was useful when he needed me and embarrassing once he didn't. Nathan's expression tightened. He said that? Not exactly. I looked at the ugly coffee in my hand. He said being married to me was the worst period of his life. Nathan was silent. I laughed once. Usually people say something like, what an asshole. I was thinking it. There you go. But I was also wondering whether you believe him. That caught me off guard. I looked at him. What? Do you? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Nathan nodded slowly. Then maybe that's the part that matters. He stood. Not whether he was wrong. He obviously was. Obviously? Yes. You barely know me. I know you drove to a hospital for a kid who poured juice on you. That proves poor judgment. He smiled. Maybe. Then he went back to Noah. I sat alone in the hallway for another 10 minutes. Do you believe him? The question followed me home. Weeks later, Noah's school announced a Mother's Day family project. That was when everything with him changed. His teacher called Nathan first. Then Nathan called me. I need advice. That sounds dangerous. Noah ripped up an assignment. What assignment? There was a pause. A Mother's Day family tree. My chest tightened. What did the teacher do? She suggested he could include someone else. Who? Another pause. You. I closed my eyes. Oh no. That was my reaction. Did she say that to him directly? Yes. How bad? He told her she was stupid. I winced. Not ideal. No. Don't punish him for being upset. I wasn't planning to. Do punish him for calling his teacher stupid. That part one was planning. The next afternoon I stopped by the Reed house with a box of old photos Nathan had given me. Noah saw them and immediately stiffened. What are those? Pictures of your mom. His face changed. Dad gave you those? Yes. Why? Because I thought maybe your school project could be about her. He stared at me. My teacher said I could use you. I know. His expression became defensive. I'm not. I know. I mean, you're not my mom. I know. He searched my face like he was waiting for pain. I didn't give him any. I sat beside him and opened the box. You don't have to replace someone just because they died. He swallowed. Dad likes you. My hands stopped. He does? He thinks I don't notice. I smiled despite myself. Noah frowned. If you married him, would you make me call you Mom? No. His eyes narrowed. What would I call you? Emily. Forever? As long as you wanted. He looked back at the pictures. What if Dad wanted me to? Then your dad and I would have a disagreement. That got his attention. You'd argue with Dad? Absolutely. A tiny smile appeared. Good. We worked on the project for nearly 2 hours. Noah chose a photo of Rachel holding him as a toddler. He wrote underneath it, "My mom loved music even though she could not sing." I laughed. He frowned. It's true. I believe you. Before I left, he asked, Emily? Yeah. If Dad asks you out again, you can say yes. I stared at him. How generous. I'm serious. What changed? He shrugged. You don't act weird about Mom. That was the highest compliment Noah had ever given me. Nathan asked me to dinner 3 days later. This time I said yes. Not because he was rich. Not because he was impressive. I still barely cared about either. I said yes because he listened. Because he never tried to make my boundaries inconvenient. Because when I said no, he heard no. And because when his son was scared, Nathan didn't ask me to replace the woman Noah had lost. He just let me be Emily. We dated slowly, painfully slowly according to Denise. 8 months later, Nathan knew almost everything about my marriage. One night I told him about Jason moving money before the divorce. About Vanessa. About the way Jason had told friends I was unstable before he even told me he wanted out. Nathan's jaw tightened. You know I'm trying very hard not to say something inappropriate. About Jason? Yes, you can say it. He's an idiot. I laughed. Very mature. I'm a CEO. People assume maturity without evidence. I shook my head. Then I got quiet. What if he was right about one thing? Nathan's smile faded. What thing? What if I was too much? Too much what? Too needy. Too emotional. Too ordinary. Nathan stared at me. Emily, I know how it sounds. No, I don't think you do. His voice was calm, but his expression had hardened. You were married to a man who benefited from making you doubt your value. I looked away. Nathan didn't reach for me immediately. He waited. Then he said, I'm not asking you to believe me because I'm a better man than he was. I looked back. I'm asking you to stop using his opinion as evidence. That sentence stayed with me. Almost a year after our first disastrous meeting, Nathan proposed. He did it privately. No restaurant. No crowd. No pressure. I looked at the ring and then at him. And the first thing I said was, what about Noah? Nathan blinked. That's between you and me. No. His brow furrowed. If I marry you, I become part of his home too. He doesn't get to decide who I marry. I know. Then, I'm not asking his permission. I closed the ring box gently, but I need to know he feels safe. Nathan stared at me for a few seconds. Then he smiled. That may be the most Emily answer you've ever given me. The next day, someone knocked on my apartment door. Noah stood there with Nathan behind him. The boy held a folded piece of paper. What's this? I asked. Rules. If you marry Dad. Nathan looked exhausted. I was not consulted. Noah handed me the paper. At the top, in large block letters, he had written, Rules if Emily marries Dad. Don't move my stuff without asking. Don't make Dad throw away Mom's pictures. Don't make weird health food every night. You have to knock before coming into my room. You can still help with school projects if I ask. I smiled. Then I reached the last line. 6. You can never leave without saying goodbye. My vision blurred. I looked up at him. Noah immediately became uncomfortable. Why are you crying? I'm not. You are. Nathan muttered, she definitely is. I laughed through the tears. Then I crouched in front of Noah. I can agree to all of these. Even number 3. I make no promises about vegetables. That's not what it says. I'm negotiating. He groaned. I looked at the last rule again. I won't disappear on you, Noah. His expression changed. That frightened little boy from the hospital came back for half a second. You promise? I promise that if I ever have to go somewhere, I'll tell you. He nodded. Okay. Then he looked at his father. She can marry you. Nathan put a hand over his heart. Thank God. I laughed. Noah rolled his eyes. And that was the moment I understood something I had spent years getting wrong. Love was not the same as sacrifice. It was not staying quiet so someone wouldn't leave. It was not proving how useful I could be. Sometimes love was simply showing up honestly, setting boundaries, and letting another person decide in their own time that they trusted you. A year later, Noah would call me mom for the first time. 2 years after that, he would say it again in a crowded Christmas Eve ballroom. Only that time, Jason would be standing close enough to hear him. And nothing in Jason's face would ever look the same again. The day I married Nathan Reed, Noah stood beside him in a tiny navy suit and watched me more closely than anyone else in the room. Not the officiant. Not Nathan. Me. Right before the ceremony started, Noah tugged on Nathan's sleeve and whispered loudly enough for me to hear. You're still sure? Nathan looked down at him. About marrying Emily? Yes. Nathan's mouth twitched. I'm very sure. Noah nodded seriously. Good. Then he glanced at me. Because I already told her she could stay. A few people laughed. I had to look away before I started crying. Nathan leaned toward his son. Thank you for your approval. You're welcome. I wasn't actually asking. I know. That was Noah. 7 years old when I met him. 8 when Nathan proposed. 9 by the time he first called me mom. But before that happened, I had to learn how to be part of a family without disappearing inside it. That was harder than getting married. The first week after our honeymoon, Nathan found me at the kitchen table answering Bright Steps emails at almost midnight. He set a glass of water beside my laptop. You know you don't have to do this anymore. My hands froze. I looked up. Do what? Work this late. Something old and ugly tightened inside my chest. I closed the laptop. So you think I should quit? Nathan blinked. What? My job. I didn't say that. You said I don't have to do this anymore. I meant you don't have to answer emails at midnight. I stood. And if I want to, Emily. His face changed when he realized what had happened. He pulled out the chair across from me but didn't touch me. I am not asking you to quit. I crossed my arms. Nathan continued carefully. If you want to work at Bright Steps forever, I'll support that. I don't need permission. I know. He nodded. That came out wrong. I said nothing. He leaned forward. What I meant was, if you ever want to take time off, change jobs, go back to school, work more, work less, start something of your own, whatever, you have choices. That word stopped me. Choices. Jason had always framed his demands as sacrifices for our future. Nathan framed support as freedom. I slowly sat back down. He gave me a small smile. Better? Somewhat. How badly did I step in it? An 8. Out of 10? Out of 5. He winced. Great. I laughed despite myself. Then I reached across the table and took his hand. I'm still learning. So am I. That was one of the things I loved most about Nathan. He did not expect marriage to erase damage he had not caused. A few months later, Reed Holdings announced a new initiative that partnered with local schools, food programs, youth shelters, and neighborhood nonprofits. Because of my work at Bright Steps, the community investment team asked me to consult. My first reaction was no. Nathan looked surprised. Why? Because people will say I got it because I'm your wife. They might. That doesn't bother you? Bothers me if it's true. I stared at him. He shrugged. So make sure it isn't. That irritated me. Very helpful. You're welcome. I took the position under one condition. I would not report to Nathan. Every project involving my team would go through an independent director and committee approval. Nathan agreed immediately. At my first formal meeting, one executive named Susan glanced at my proposal and then at my wedding ring. So what exactly is your role here? I knew what she meant. I smiled. Community program development. No, I mean before Reed Holdings. Bright Steps. She nodded slowly. Right, of course. Her tone said everything. I could have mentioned that I had built programs for 6 years. I could have reminded her that I had spent more time inside community shelters than she probably had inside grocery stores. Instead, I opened my presentation. 30 minutes later, she had 3 pages of notes. To the end, she asked, "Can you send me the retention numbers from the school meal pilot? Already in your inbox." She blinked. Nathan never had to defend me. That mattered. I wanted my work to stand without his shadow over it. And eventually it did. The program expanded. We helped several neighborhood suppliers qualify for contracts they had previously been shut out of. We partnered with youth centers. We funded after-school transportation in 2 counties. For the first time in years, I felt proud without needing someone else to notice. Then I got pregnant. Nathan stared at the test for almost a full minute. I finally said, "You're allowed to speak." He looked at me. "We're having a baby? That's generally what this means." He laughed once. Then his eyes filled. I had never seen Nathan look that terrified and happy at the same time. He wrapped his arms around me. When we told Noah, he stared at us like we had announced a hostile takeover. "A baby?" "Yes," Nathan said. "In this house." I tried not to laugh. "That's the plan." Noah frowned. "Babies scream." "They do. They throw up." "Also true. They break stuff." Nathan nodded. "You broke plenty of stuff." "That was different." "How?" "I was a kid." Nathan looked at me. I bit the inside of my cheek. For the next 2 weeks, Noah acted like he didn't care. Then he started asking questions. Would the baby use the room across from his? Would I still pick him up after soccer practice? Would Nathan stop coming to his school stuff? Did babies get more Christmas presents? The questions got smaller and more specific. That told me the fear underneath them was getting bigger. One evening, I found him sitting on the stairs while Nathan was on a work call. He looked at my stomach. I was barely showing. "You're really having her? We don't know if it's a girl yet." "Think it is." "Why?" "Dad's life is already controlled by you. Another girl would finish him." I stared at him. "That is deeply insulting." "It's true." I sat beside him. He picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. Then, without looking at me, he asked, "Will she be more yours than I am?" Everything inside me went quiet. I turned toward him. "Noah." He shrugged too quickly. "It's fine." "No, look at me." He did. His face was trying very hard to look older than 9. I said, "She'll be my daughter." His eyes dropped. "And you're Noah." He frowned. "That doesn't answer it." "Yes, it does." "How?" "Because you're not a category." He looked confused. "You're not less mine because you had a mother before me. You're you. But she'll be your real kid." There it was. I took a breath. "She'll be my biological child." "That means real." "No." I shook my head. "That means biological." He looked at me skeptically. I continued, "You don't have to compete with a baby to keep your place here. What if you love her more?" "I'm going to love her differently." His face tightened. "That sounds like more." "No, it sounds like different." I nudged his shoulder. "I don't love your dad the same way I love you. Obviously. Thank God." He almost smiled. I said, "Families aren't pie, Noah." "What?" "You don't get a smaller piece because another person comes in." "That's a bad example." "Why?" "Because Dad ate the last piece of apple pie yesterday." From the hallway, Nathan called. "I heard that." Noah shouted back, "You were supposed to." Our daughter was born the following spring. We named her Sophie. Noah stood beside the hospital bed and looked down at her with deep suspicion. "She's small." "That tends to happen with newborns," Nathan said. "She looks mad." "She is Nathan's daughter," I said. Nathan gave me a look. Noah smiled. The first time Sophie wrapped her tiny fingers around his, Noah stopped talking. He just stared. Then he whispered, "She's holding me." I watched something change in his face. Not all at once, but enough. After that, he complained constantly about her. "She's crying again." "She drooled on me." "She smells weird." And yet he was always the first person to check if she was awake. He learned how to hold her. He sat beside her on the floor while doing homework. If someone else tried to pick her up at a family gathering, he watched them like security. Still, he never called me mom. And I never asked. I had promised him that. When Sophie was almost 2, Noah got into a fight at school. Not a physical fight. A verbal one which somehow involved his teacher calling me at work. When I picked him up, he climbed into the car and slammed the door. "What happened?" "Nothing. Your teacher used the phrase highly inappropriate language." "She's dramatic." "Noah." He crossed his arms. I waited. Finally he muttered, "Evan said you're not my real mom." I kept my eyes on the road. And he said Sophie's your real kid." I said nothing. Noah continued, angrier now. He said, "You only act like my mom because Dad's rich." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Jason's voice flashed through my head. "Finding another successful man." Pushed it away. "What did you say?" Noah looked out the window. "That he was an idiot." That part is understandable. He said I should call you Emily because you're just my stepmom. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the car. Noah, look at me. He did. You can call me Emily. His face changed. I know. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. That's not the point. Then what is? He glared at the dashboard. I don't know. I did not force him. Later that week, Sophie tried to climb out of a kitchen chair while I was reaching for a cup. I saw her tip sideways. Everything happened in 1 second. I lunged and caught her before she hit the floor. Noah came running from the hallway. Mom! The word cut through the room. We all froze. Sophie started crying. Nathan stopped halfway through the doorway. Noah looked horrified. Not because Sophie had almost fallen. Because of what he had just called me. I held Sophie against my chest. I've got her. Noah stared at me. His face went red. I didn't. It's okay. I wasn't thinking. That's okay too. Nathan wisely said nothing. For the rest of the evening, Noah barely looked at me. At bedtime, he appeared outside our room. Emily? I looked up from my book. Yeah. He stood in the doorway. Do I have to keep calling you that now? I knew exactly what he meant. No. He shifted his weight. So if I call you Emily tomorrow, you won't be mad? No. What if I call you Mom sometimes? My throat tightened. That's okay too. He nodded. Good. He started to walk away. Then stopped. Good night, Mom. I had to press my lips together. Good night, Noah. After he left, Nathan looked at me. You okay? No. He smiled. You want me to pretend not to notice you're crying? Yes. Done. You're staring at me. I'm pretending very badly. I threw a pillow at him. That was our life. Not perfect. Not magical. But mine. By the time Sophie turned 2, I had stopped thinking of myself as the woman Jason left. I was Emily Reed. I was still Emily from Bright Steps. I was Nathan's wife. I was Sophie's mother. And because a stubborn 9-year-old had chosen the word himself, I was Noah's mom. Jason had become something I rarely thought about. Until Carter Distribution appeared on a supplier list during a Reed Holdings planning meeting. I saw the name and went still. Margaret Sloan, our chief compliance officer, looked at me. You know them? I kept my voice neutral. My ex-husband owns the company. The room went quiet. Margaret immediately closed the file. Then you're recused from this review. Agreed. Nathan, seated at the far end of the table, didn't react. That was intentional. We had discussed conflicts before. After the meeting, he found me near the elevator. You okay? Yes. That sounded suspiciously fast. I'm fine. Emily. I sighed. Surprised me. Do you want me to ask procurement to remove them? No. He didn't even hesitate. Okay. I looked at him. You're not going to argue? You said no. That still had the power to undo something inside me. I said, if they qualify, they qualify. And if they don't, then they don't. Nathan nodded. That's what the process is for. Over the next few weeks, Jason's company remained one of several bidders for a major regional supply contract. I learned through the team that Carter Distribution had expanded aggressively. New warehouses, new clients, new debt. Jason had become exactly what he always wanted people to see. Successful, important, impressive. What I did not know was that he had spent months trying to get a private meeting with Nathan. Nathan mentioned it one evening while helping Sophie put blocks into the wrong-shaped holes. Carter's CEO keeps asking for dinner. I looked up. Jason, he's gone through procurement twice and called my office. What did you say? The same thing I say to everyone who tries to skip the process. Which is? No. I smiled. Nathan looked at me. Too harsh? No. Good. Sophie agrees. Sophie hit the block against the table. Nathan nodded solemnly. Strong position. Jason had no idea Nathan's wife was me. Most people outside Reed Holdings knew Nathan was married, but I rarely appeared in business press, and I never used our marriage as part of my work identity. Apparently Vanessa knew Nathan's wife worked in community programs. She simply never connected the name. That mistake lasted until Christmas Eve. Reed Holdings' annual holiday gala was one of the biggest company events of the year. Employees came with spouses. Community partners were invited. Several supplier finalists attended. I usually avoided large corporate events when I could. That year, Nathan asked me while we were cleaning up dinner, "You coming Friday?" "I haven't decided." He looked wounded. "I'm giving a speech." "I've heard you speak." "That's cruel." "You'll survive." You're supposed to give part of it with me. I stared at him. What? The community section. I thought Margaret was doing it. She suggested you. Why? Because it's your program. I hated how reasonable that was. Nathan leaned against the counter. You don't want to go. It's not that. It's exactly that. I looked down. Corporate dinner still had a way of making me remember Jason. The dresses I supposedly wore wrong. The conversations I supposedly didn't understand. The way he used to make me feel like everyone important could see I did not belong. Nathan's voice softened. You don't have to prove anything. I know. Do you? I gave him a look. He smiled. If you hate it, we leave after 20 minutes. You're the CEO. So, you can't leave your own Christmas party after 20 minutes. Watch me. I laughed. Then I realized what I was doing. Avoiding a room because Jason had taught me to be ashamed in rooms like that. I hated that more than I hated corporate parties. I'll go. Nathan smiled. Good. But if I get trapped talking to some board member about tax policy, I'm blaming you. Fair. The night of the gala, Bright Steps had a last-minute issue with a donation pickup. So I arrived later than Nathan and the kids. He texted me twice. Noah says I'm not allowed to start without you. Then, Sophie ate something red and is now wearing it. Consider this a warning. I smiled at my phone. I finished a call near the edge of the ballroom and slipped it into my bag. Then I heard a voice I had not heard in 3 years. Emily? My entire body went still. I turned. Jason stood a few feet away. He looked older, sharper, more polished. And beside him was Vanessa. Her hand was looped through his arm. A large diamond flashed on her left hand. She smiled first. Not warmly. Well, she said. This is unexpected. Jason's eyes moved over me slowly. Then the old expression returned. That faint, superior smile I remembered too well. I didn't know Bright Steps got invited to events like this. And just like that, 3 years disappeared. For 1 second, I was back in our old house, standing across from the man who had told me loving me had been the worst period of his life. Only this time I wasn't the same woman. And Jason had no idea whose Christmas party he had just walked into. For 1 second, I considered pretending I hadn't heard Jason. Then Vanessa smiled at me. Not kindly. Not even politely. It was the same smile she used to wear at Jason's company events when she wanted everyone in the room to know she believed she had already won. Well, she said, glancing down at my dress and then back at my face. Emily Carter. Reed, I corrected. She blinked. Sorry. My last name is Reed now. Jason's mouth tightened slightly. I saw him register the change but not the significance. Vanessa recovered first. Oh, right. She lifted her left hand as if she had just remembered something important. The diamond on her ring finger caught the light. Jason and I got married last spring. I looked at the ring, then at her. Congratulations. That clearly wasn't the reaction she wanted. Her smile stayed in place but her eyes cooled. Jason gave a short laugh. You always were good at pretending nothing bothered you. I looked at him. Do you want something, Jason? His eyebrows rose. Vanessa glanced between us. I told you she'd still be defensive. I almost laughed. 3 years earlier, a comment like that would have ruined my night. I would have gone home and replayed it. Was I defensive? Was I bitter? Was I making things awkward? Now I only felt tired. Jason slipped one hand into his pocket. I'm just surprised to see you here. I can tell. I didn't know Bright Steps had this kind of access. There it was. The old tone. The suggestion that I had wandered into a room above my station. I said Bright Steps works with Reed Holdings. Right. He nodded slowly. I heard Nathan Reed's wife is involved with some of the community programs. Vanessa smiled. Apparently she's very serious about charity. I looked at her. You've heard that? Everyone has. It's good branding. Something in me sharpened. Or maybe she cares about the work. Vanessa shrugged. Maybe. Jason gave me a look. Still taking everything personally, I see. I almost smiled. 3 years. 3 whole years, and he still believed the easiest way to control a conversation was to tell me my reaction was the real problem. I said, actually, I'm not taking any of this personally. That would be new. Jason. Vanessa touched his arm. Be nice. The words were sweet. Her expression wasn't. Then she looked at me. How have you been? Good. Still at Bright Steps? Yes. Jason chuckled. Of course. I looked at him. What does that mean? Nothing. No, go ahead. He lifted both hands. I'm not starting anything. Vanessa smiled. He just means you were always very committed to that little nonprofit. Little. I thought about our school meal program, the foster youth transportation fund, the families we had helped keep housed through emergency grants. I thought about the way Jason used to talk about my work when we first got married. You're the good one, Em. You actually help people. Then his company took off, and suddenly the same work became proof that I wasn't ambitious enough. I said, I still like what I do. Jason shook his head. That was always your problem. I stared at him. My job? No. Being satisfied with too little. Vanessa's mouth curved. Jason continued. You never understood the bigger picture. Growth. Scale. What it takes to actually build something. I felt the old ache try to rise. I didn't get very far. I asked, is that why you're here tonight? His face changed. What? To build something? Jason's expression hardened. We're a finalist for a major regional contract. I heard. That surprised him. You heard? Reed Holdings has several supplier finalists. Vanessa leaned in slightly. So you do know people here. I smiled. A few. Jason looked pleased with himself again. Well, assuming the process stays objective, we're in a very strong position. The sentence was careful. Too careful. I knew exactly what he was trying to say. He wanted me to reassure him. He wanted confirmation that my presence wouldn't affect his bid. I didn't give it to him. Instead I said, then I'm sure you have nothing to worry about. His jaw shifted. Vanessa laughed lightly. This is awkward. I looked at her. Doesn't have to be. You're right. She slipped closer to Jason. We're all adults. Then she added, almost casually, and honestly I think everything worked out for the best. Jason looked at her. She looked at me. He's happier. I nodded. That's good. Vanessa's smile faltered. Jason frowned. That's it? What else would you like me to say? He looked irritated now. I don't know. You're acting like none of it mattered. I stared at him. That was almost funny. He had spent the end of our marriage telling me I cared too much. Now he was offended that I no longer cared enough. I said it mattered. His expression changed slightly. I continued. It just doesn't matter now. Vanessa's fingers tightened around his arm. Jason looked at me for several seconds. Then he gave that familiar little laugh. You know, it's amazing. I said nothing. He glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. I look back at that time now and wonder how I stayed as long as I did. Vanessa lowered her eyes, pretending embarrassment. Jason. No, I'm serious. His voice got just loud enough that the couple standing a few feet away could hear. I was miserable. I felt several people glance over. 3 years earlier, I would have wanted the floor to open under me. Now I simply watched him. Jason smiled. Honestly, being married to you was probably the worst period of my life. There it was. The same sentence. Almost word for word. The sentence that had once followed me into a one-bedroom apartment. The sentence I had carried into therapy. The sentence I had heard in my own head every time I thought about dating again. Vanessa laughed softly. One of the nearby guests looked uncomfortable. Another suddenly became very interested in his drink. I waited for the pain. It came. But it was small. A bruise, not a wound. And that was when I realized Jason no longer had the power he thought he had. I looked at him and said, that's good. His smile disappeared. What? At least now we both have the lives we wanted. Vanessa stopped laughing. Jason stared at me. I smiled politely. I'm happy for you. He gave a sharp breath. You always did that. Did what? The saint routine. I almost rolled my eyes. I'm not doing anything. You stand there acting calm so everyone else looks unreasonable. Jason, you walked over to me. His face tightened. You're the one who decided to announce our divorce history at a business event. Vanessa looked around. Maybe we should stop. Jason ignored her. I just find it interesting that you suddenly seem so comfortable in rooms like this. There it was again. I said maybe I changed. He smiled without humor. People don't change that much. I did. Really? Yes. How? I considered answering. Then I decided he didn't deserve the story. He didn't deserve to know about Noah's Mother's Day project. Or Sophie's first laugh. Or Nathan sitting outside a hospital room with vending machine coffee. Or the first time I realized a man could hear the word no and simply accept it. So I said, I stopped needing you to understand me. Jason's face went blank. Vanessa looked at him. For the first time she seemed uncomfortable. I picked up my phone. I need to go. Jason stepped slightly to the side, blocking my path. You're leaving already? I have somewhere to be. At the same party? Yes. His mouth twisted. Right. I heard the skepticism, and then I heard something else. Mom. Every muscle in my body relaxed. I turned. Noah was walking quickly toward me with Sophie in his arms. Sophie saw me and immediately reached both hands out. Mommy. I took her from Noah. Hey baby. She wrapped both arms around my neck. Noah looked annoyed. Dad said you have 5 minutes. I smiled. 5 minutes for what? He gave me the look 9-year-olds reserve for adults who are failing basic intelligence tests. Your speech. I felt Jason go still behind me. Noah continued. He said Mr. and Mrs. Reed are supposed to go up together. And if you're not there, he's starting without you. I heard Vanessa inhale. I turned slowly. Her face had changed. Not much, but enough. Her eyes moved from Noah to me, then to Sophie, then back to me. Reed? Jason didn't speak. I shifted Sophie higher on my hip. Yes. Vanessa's face lost color. Jason looked at me like he had stopped understanding English. Reed as in. A familiar voice came from behind Noah. As in Reed Holdings. Nathan walked toward us. He was holding Sophie's tiny red cardigan in one hand. The second Sophie saw him, she reached toward him. Daddy. Nathan smiled and took her from me. You disappeared. I had a call. For 20 minutes. 10. 15. Fine. He draped the cardigan over his arm and adjusted the edge of my wrap where it had slipped. You're freezing. I'm fine. You always say that. He smiled. Then he seemed to notice Jason and Vanessa for the first time. His hand settled lightly against my back. Are you going to introduce me? I looked at Jason. His face was pale now. Actually pale. This is Jason Carter. Nathan's expression didn't change. Then I added my ex-husband. Something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Not anger. Recognition. He held out his hand. Nathan Reed. Jason stared at it for half a second too long. Then he shook it. Of course. Yes. I know who you are. Nathan gave a polite smile. I'm sorry, have we met? Jason's face tightened. No. I've been trying to schedule time with your office. Nathan glanced at me. I said nothing. He looked back at Jason. Right. Carter Distribution. Jason brightened slightly. Yes. We're in the final supplier round. I'm aware. The words were perfectly polite. That somehow made Jason look even more nervous. Vanessa stepped forward. I'm Vanessa Carter. Nathan shook her hand too. Nice to meet you. Then Noah spoke. Is this the Jason? I closed my eyes for half a second. Noah. He looked at me. What? Don't. That should have ended it. It did not. Noah looked at Jason. You're the guy who said Mom made your life miserable? Jason's face changed instantly. Vanessa's head snapped toward him. Nathan went very still. I said more firmly, Noah. He frowned. I heard him. Jason forced a laugh. That was just an adult conversation. Noah's expression sharpened. Then maybe adults shouldn't say mean things where kids can hear. Noah. Nathan's voice was calm. That's enough. Noah looked at him. But, enough. Noah pressed his lips together. For a second I thought he was done. Then he looked back at Jason. Maybe you just didn't know how to appreciate people. My stomach dropped. Noah Reed. His shoulders slumped. Sorry. Nathan handed Sophie back to me. Then he rested one hand briefly on Noah's shoulder. We don't insult guests. Noah muttered he insulted Mom. I know. Nathan's tone stayed even. That doesn't change the rule. Jason looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. And for some reason, Nathan's refusal to pile on made the moment worse for him. There was no bullying. No threat. No CEO performance. Just a 9-year-old boy defending the woman Jason had once called worthless. Vanessa broke the silence. We should probably let you get to your speech. Yes, I said. Nathan looked at me. You ready? I nodded. As we turned away, Jason said quickly, Emily. I stopped. Nathan looked at me. I gave him a small nod. I'll catch up. He hesitated, then took Noah with him. Vanessa moved away too, though not far. Jason waited until Nathan was out of earshot. Then he turned on me. You married Nathan Reed? Yes. How long? Almost 2 years. His eyes widened. You've been married to him for 2 years? Yes. And you never told me? I stared at him. Why would I? His mouth opened, then closed. We were married for 5 years. And divorced for 3. You knew my company was bidding. I found out recently. Jason's eyes narrowed. Are you involved in the review? No. Does Nathan know who I am? He does now. Emily. His voice dropped. This contract is important. I looked at him. There it is. What? The reason you suddenly care who I married. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. You didn't ask whether I'm happy. He looked away. You didn't ask about my children. His eyes flicked toward Noah and Sophie. You asked whether I'm involved in your contract. I'm trying to protect my company, and I'm telling you that my marriage has nothing to do with your bid. Jason searched my face. So you're not going to interfere? No. His shoulders visibly loosened. Then I added, if your company qualifies, it qualifies. He nodded. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. His expression hardened again. That sounds like a warning. It's not. What am I supposed to think? You're supposed to think the same thing every other supplier thinks. Submit accurate information and let the process work. His stare sharpened. You really expect me to believe Nathan won't care that I'm your ex? He'll care personally. Jason's face changed. But he won't interfere with procurement. How do you know? Because that's the kind of man he is. The words came out before I thought about them. Jason flinched. Just slightly. I didn't soften them. Nathan appeared near the stage and lifted one hand. I looked back at Jason. I have to go. Emily. I paused. He seemed to want to say something else. Maybe apologize. Maybe argue. Maybe ask whether I had deliberately let him embarrass himself. Instead he said, you could have told me. I almost laughed. Told you what? That your life turned out better than you expected? His face tightened. I shook my head. Jason, I stopped giving you updates on my life the day our divorce became final. Then I walked away. When I joined Nathan near the stage, he leaned toward me. You okay? Yes. He studied my face. Actually, yes. I smiled. Actually, yes. Noah stood beside us looking guilty. I'm sorry. I looked down at him. For what part? He thought. The mean part. That would be a good start. He deserved it. Nathan cleared his throat. Noah sighed. I know. Rules. I touched his hair. Thank you for wanting to defend me. His face softened. But I can defend myself. I know. Do you? He rolled his eyes. Yes, Mom. That word still got me. Even after all this time. Nathan noticed. He smiled. Then someone announced our names. We walked onto the stage together. Nathan spoke first. He thanked the employees, the community partners, the teams who had carried the company through another year. Then he turned to me. My wife has spent the last year reminding me that growth means very little if the communities around us don't grow with us. I gave him a look. That makes me sound exhausting. A few people laughed. Nathan smiled. She is. More laughter. I took the microphone. Then I talked about the school meal initiative, the youth transportation grants, the supplier mentorship program, the community partnerships we were expanding the next year. I did not talk like someone borrowing her husband's platform. I knew the numbers, the programs, the people. Afterward, 2 nonprofit directors approached me with questions. Then a regional manager asked about supplier qualification for small community vendors. A school superintendent thanked me for helping keep a transportation program alive. For the first time that night, I looked across the room at Jason. He was watching me. Not my dress. Not Nathan. Me. And there was something in his face I had never seen before. Confusion. Maybe because the woman on stage didn't match the version of me he had spent years believing in. The little charity worker. The ordinary wife. The woman who supposedly didn't understand important rooms. Vanessa stood beside him, but she wasn't touching his arm anymore. Then Margaret Sloan approached Nathan from the side of the stage. She was Reed Holdings' chief compliance officer, and she almost never interrupted social events unless it mattered. Nathan. He turned. What is it? She lowered her voice. We need to revisit Carter distribution before the final supplier vote. Nathan's expression changed. I felt my stomach tighten. He asked why. Margaret handed him a folder. 3 inconsistencies came up in the safety disclosures. I looked across the room again. Jason was still watching us. Still probably worried that I might use my marriage against him. He had no idea that I had already recused myself. No idea that Nathan would do the same. And no idea that the biggest threat to his company had nothing to do with the woman he once discarded. It was buried in his own paperwork. The morning after the Christmas Eve gala, I emailed Margaret Sloan before I even finished my coffee. I'm formally recusing myself from any review, discussion, or decision involving Carter distribution. Her reply came 6 minutes later. Already noted. Thank you. Nathan walked into the kitchen while I was reading it. You beat me to it. To what? Recusing yourself. I looked up. You were going to ask? No. He reached for a mug. I was going to make sure legal documented that you'd already stepped back. I nodded. And you? Same. I studied his face. Nathan noticed. What? You're stepping out too? Of the final supplier decision? Yes. Because of me? Because your ex-husband owns one of the companies being reviewed. He said it like it was obvious. Maybe it was. But part of me still remembered living with a man who treated rules like things meant for less important people. Jason used to say, everybody bends things a little. Nathan said, if there's even a perception of conflict, remove the conflict. That difference mattered. I put my phone down. What did Margaret find? Nathan shook his head. You're recused, remember? I gave him a look. He smiled. I can tell you what's public in the process. Nothing more. You're enjoying this. A little. I threw a napkin at him. He caught it. Then his expression softened. You okay? Yes. Actually, yes. I smiled. Mostly. That was true. Seeing Jason again had shaken loose things I thought were gone. But not in the way I expected. I wasn't lying awake wishing he regretted losing me. I wasn't imagining some dramatic revenge. What bothered me was realizing how completely he still lived inside the same story. In Jason's version, every problem was caused by someone else. His business stress was my fault because I wanted him home. His affair was my fault because I was too emotional. His divorce was my fault because I couldn't handle his success. And now, if his contract failed, I already knew exactly who he would blame. Me. 3 days later, he proved me right. My phone rang while I was leaving Bright Steps. His name appeared on the screen. I nearly ignored it. Then I answered. Hello? Emily. His voice was tight. What happened? No hello? This isn't funny. I didn't say it was. He exhaled sharply. Reed Holdings requested supplemental compliance documents. That sounds normal. It isn't. I wouldn't know. I'm not involved. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend you have no idea what's happening. I stopped walking. I don't. They asked for warehouse incident reports going back 3 years. Then send them. Silence. That silence told me more than his anger did. I said, Jason, we're handling it. Then why are you calling me? His voice dropped. Because this started after the party. No, you learned about it after the party. Same thing. It really isn't. He laughed bitterly. Come on, Emily. I felt something inside me harden. You think I went home after Christmas Eve and asked Nathan to destroy your company? I think people protect their wives. Nathan protects me by respecting me. Jason scoffed. That sounds nice. It is. He went quiet. Then he said, tell him to stay out of it. I almost laughed. He already is. What? He recused himself. Jason didn't answer. So did I. His breathing changed. You did? Yes. Then who's doing the review? Compliance. Legal. Procurement. The same people who were always supposed to do it. I heard movement on his end. A door shutting. Then Jason said, quieter, Emily, this contract is a big deal. I know. We hired people because we expected to grow. I closed my eyes. There was a time when that sentence would have worked on me. People are counting on me. I have employees. I can't fail. Jason had always known how to turn his ambition into everyone else's moral responsibility. I said, then give them accurate information. His voice sharpened. We do. Good. He hung up without saying goodbye. That evening, I told Nathan about the call. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked, do you want his number blocked? No. Why? Because if he contacts me about the bid again, I want a record. Nathan nodded once. Smart. I smiled faintly. Rachel taught me something after the divorce. Document everything? Exactly. The review lasted another week. I did not ask questions. I did not look for updates. Then Vanessa emailed me. The subject line was, a private conversation between women. I stared at it for 10 full seconds before opening it. Her first paragraph was almost friendly. She said Christmas Eve had been awkward. She said she regretted that old emotions had come up in a professional setting. Then she wrote, I know you don't want Jason's company punished because of personal history. I sat back. There it was. A premise designed to make me deny it. If I answered emotionally, she could say I was involved. So I didn't. The email continued. Vanessa explained that Carter Distribution's contract would create hundreds of stable jobs. that losing it could hurt employees who had nothing to do with our past. Then she mentioned Bright Steps. Jason and I would be happy to make a substantial donation to support your programs if you could help clarify the misunderstanding with Reed Holdings. I felt my face go cold. I read the sentence twice, then once more. Maybe she meant a legitimate charitable contribution. Maybe. Then I reached the final paragraph. There are also consulting opportunities we could discuss privately. I'm sure we can find a way for everyone to benefit. I did not call her. I did not reply. I forwarded the entire email to Margaret Sloan and Reed Holdings legal counsel with one sentence. Please advise if any response is required from me. Margaret called within 15 minutes. Do not respond. I wasn't planning to. Good. Her tone had changed. More serious. Emily, did Vanessa contact you in any other way? No. Jason. He called about the supplemental review. What did he ask for? For me to tell Nathan to stay out of it. Margaret paused. Did he offer anything? No. Threaten anything? No. Send me a written summary of the call while it's still fresh. I will. I hesitated. Margaret. Yes. Was the review already serious before this? She was quiet for a beat. You're recused. Right. But I can tell you this email did not create the underlying problem. That was enough. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up at Bright Steps. I was walking toward the front office when Denise stopped me. There's a woman asking for you. I knew before she finished. Vanessa stood near reception wearing a cream coat and an expression that said she believed she belonged anywhere she walked into. When she saw me, she smiled. Can we talk? No. Her smile slipped. Emily, this is important. I know. 5 minutes. I already forwarded your email to compliance. Her face went still. You what? You contacted me about an active supplier review. Her eyes narrowed. I contacted you privately. That's exactly the problem. Vanessa lowered her voice. I was trying to help. By offering me money. Her face flushed. That is not what I said. You offered Bright Steps a donation, and then suggested private consulting work if I helped influence a review involving my ex-husband's company. You're twisting it. I forwarded the exact email. For the first time, Vanessa looked scared. Then fear turned to anger. You've always hated me.
Ist daher.
No. She laughed. Oh please. You want the truth? Yes. I stopped thinking about you years ago. Her expression changed. That hurt her more than hatred would have. I continued. You mattered because you were part of the way my marriage ended. That's all. She folded her arms. You think you're better than me now because you married Nathan Reed? No. Then why are you acting like this? Because you came to my workplace to ask me to interfere in a corporate review. I'm trying to save a company. No. You're trying to save a contract. Her mouth tightened. You have no idea how many people depend on Jason. I used to be one of them. Vanessa went silent. I said, please leave. She did. But Jason showed up the next afternoon. He caught me outside the Reed Holdings community office after a project meeting. Emily. I turned. His face was red. Not from cold. From anger. You sent Vanessa's email to compliance? Yes. Are you insane? I stared at him. You probably want to reconsider that question. He dragged a hand through his hair. She was trying to fix this. She offered me a private financial benefit. She was desperate. That doesn't make it better. Jason stepped closer. You knew what would happen. I held his gaze. She wrote the email. You could have deleted it. No. His jaw clenched. Why? Because I'm not risking my job, my reputation, or Nathan's company to protect yours. This isn't about protecting me. It is exactly about protecting you. There are employees involved. And who made the decisions that put them at risk? Jason's face hardened. You think I did this? I don't know what you did. I kept my voice calm. That's the point. I'm not part of the review. He laughed harshly. You always do that. Do what? Act clean while everyone else gets their hands dirty. My stomach turned. 3 years ago, that might have made me defend myself. Instead, I asked, did I alter your supplier data? His eyes flickered. Did I? No. Did I hide warehouse incidents? Silence. Did I tell your staff to change quality ratings? He looked away. Felt a chill. So something was changed. It's complicated. No, that answer is complicated. The question wasn't. Jason's voice dropped. You don't understand how business works. There it was. I almost smiled. The same line. The same Jason. You're right, I said. His eyes snapped back to me. I don't understand running a company by hiding information and hoping nobody asks the right questions. His face went white. I never said that. You didn't have to. He looked around, then lowered his voice. We had issues. What kind? Normal issues. Then why didn't you disclose them? We disclosed what was material. Apparently compliance disagrees. His mouth tightened. Then he said the thing I knew was coming. You wanted this. I stared at him. No. You get to stand there married to Nathan Reed while my company falls apart. And I'm supposed to believe you don't enjoy it? I took one step toward him. Did I falsify your reports? He said nothing. Did I hide your accident records? Nothing. Did I tell Vanessa to email me? Still nothing. I shook my head. You spent years telling yourself every bad thing in your life was somebody else's fault. His expression cracked. I used to believe you. That landed. I saw it in his face. Then I said, I don't anymore. I walked away before he could answer. The official decision came 4 days later. Carter Distribution did not pass the final compliance review. The company lost the contract. They were also barred from rebidding for 12 months because of incomplete disclosures and the improper attempt to influence the process after questions had been raised. Nathan told me only after the decision was final and public within the company. Are you okay? He asked. I sat beside him on the couch. Yes. You sure? I thought I'd feel something bigger, like satisfaction. He waited. I don't. Nathan nodded. That's probably healthy. I mostly feel tired. He took my hand. That too. Losing the Reed contract didn't destroy Jason overnight, but it exposed how aggressively he had expanded. Without the expected revenue, lenders started asking questions. Another large customer requested updated safety documentation. A warehouse expansion was delayed. Then Vanessa started turning on him. Linda told me about that part. She called a week later. I almost didn't answer. Emily? Hi, Linda. Her voice trembled. I'm sorry to call. You don't have to apologize. I heard what happened. I said nothing. Jason says Reed Holdings ruined him. My chest tightened. Linda. I told him to stop. I went quiet. She continued. I should have done that 3 years ago. Her voice broke. I sat down. Jason came over last night. Vanessa's talking to a lawyer. Already? He said she blamed him for everything. Linda gave a bitter little laugh. Funny, isn't it? What is? When you were married to him, everything was your fault. I closed my eyes. Linda. No. Let me say this. Her voice grew stronger. I knew he was treating you badly. I didn't speak. I didn't know all of it. But I knew enough. My throat tightened. She continued. You sat with Robert during his surgery because Jason was in Atlanta. You took me to therapy after my knee replacement. You sold your grandmother's jewelry when he couldn't make payroll. And when he finally started making money, he acted like remembering those years embarrassed him. I swallowed hard. Linda said, I was afraid if I sided with you, I'd lose my son. The honesty hurt. But by staying quiet, I helped him lose his wife. I looked down at my hand. My wedding ring caught the light. Not Jason's ring. Nathan's. I said softly that was his choice. I know. Her voice cracked again. I just wish I'd told him that sooner. The next day, Jason went to see her again. I only learned what happened because Linda called later. He blamed you again, she said. I sighed. What did he say? That you destroyed his company. And? I told him he destroyed the home he had before he ever damaged the company. I closed my eyes. Linda had never spoken to Jason like that when we were married. She continued. He said I was taking your side. What did you say? I said I should have taken your side when it mattered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Linda said quietly, he didn't have anything to say after that. A few days later, I walked out of Bright Steps and saw Jason waiting near the curb. No Vanessa. No expensive overcoat. No smile. He looked exhausted. For the first time since I had known him, Jason Carter looked like a man who had run out of people to blame. Emily. I stopped. He took one step toward me. I'm not here about the contract. I said nothing. His jaw tightened, then loosened. I think I finally understand what I did to you. 3 years earlier, I would have given almost anything to hear those words. I would have stayed awake all night imagining the day Jason finally understood what he had thrown away. Now I looked at him and felt something I never expected. Peace. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Not anger either. Just distance. Jason swallowed. Can we talk? I looked at the man who had once convinced me that loving him was proof I had failed myself. Then I realized the cruelest thing about regret was how useless it became once the person you hurt no longer needed it. And for the first time, Jason's apology had nowhere left to go. 3 years earlier, I would have given almost anything to hear Jason say he understood what he had done to me. Now he stood in front of bright steps looking exhausted, and all I could think was how late he was. Not 5 minutes late, not a few months, years. He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. Can we talk? I glanced at my watch. I have 20 minutes. His mouth tightened. That's all? I have to pick up Sophie. The answer seemed to hit him harder than it should have. There had been a time when Jason's schedule controlled my entire life. Now my life was already full without him. Okay, he said quietly. 20 minutes. We walked to a coffee shop around the corner. Jason sat across from me and stared at his hands for a long time. I didn't rescue him from the silence. That was another habit I had finally broken. He looked up. I cheated on you. I didn't react. His face tightened. I know you knew, but I need to say it. Okay. Started before I admitted it. With Vanessa? Yes. How long? Emotionally? Months. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. Physically, not until near the end. I gave him a flat look. He immediately shook his head. I'm not saying that makes it better. Good. I used to tell myself it did. I know. He looked surprised. I almost smiled. Jason had never been as complicated as he believed. He continued. I moved money too. I know. You didn't know all of it. I waited. He swallowed. I started restructuring things before I told you I wanted out. I convinced myself I was protecting the company. From me. Yes. The word came out quietly. I thought if the divorce got ugly, you'd try to punish me through the business. I stared at him. Had I ever threatened to do that? No. Had I ever threatened your company? No. Then why did you believe I would? Jason looked down. Because I needed to. That answer caught me. He gave a bitter laugh. If you were unreasonable, then I wasn't cruel. I said nothing. If you were unstable, then I wasn't betraying a good wife. I was escaping a bad marriage. My stomach tightened. Jason finally looked at me. I told Matt you were emotional. I told Brian you resented the company. I told my mother you were angry all the time. I wasn't. I know. You knew then. He flinched. Yes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I had imagined this confession so many times after the divorce. In those fantasies, I screamed. I told him what a monster he was. I made him cry. But sitting across from him now, I mostly felt sad for the woman I had been. The woman who spent nights wondering if she really had become unstable. Jason leaned forward. I hated who I was when we were poor. I frowned. He kept going. I hated asking you if we could put groceries on your card. I hated watching you pay rent. I hated knowing you sold your grandmother's earrings because I couldn't make payroll. His eyes were red now. And every time I looked at you, you remembered that version of me. I stared at him. You thought I looked down on you? No. He shook his head. That was worse. What? You didn't. He laughed once painfully. You believed in me when there was nothing impressive to believe in. I felt my throat tighten. Then why punish me for that? Because Vanessa met me after I was successful. There it was. The truth. She knew the office, the title, the clients. She never saw me panicking in a one-bedroom apartment because I couldn't make payroll. He looked away. When she looked at me, I felt like the man I wanted to be. And when I looked at you, you reminded me of the man I actually was. I sat back. For the first time, I understood something I should have understood years ago. Jason had not discarded me because I was beneath his new life. He had discarded me because I knew how much of that life had been built while he was scared, broke, and dependent on someone else. I said softly, you were ashamed of needing me. Yes, and instead of dealing with that, you made me feel ashamed for being there. His face crumpled. Yes. I looked out the window for a moment. Then Jason said the question I knew was coming. If I hadn't left, I turned back. He swallowed. If I hadn't divorced you, do you think we could have fixed it? No. The answer came so quickly that he looked stunned. Not even if Vanessa had never happened? No. His voice cracked slightly. Why? Because Vanessa wasn't the first thing that broke us. He stared at me. You were. His face tightened. I continued. Every time you embarrassed me in front of your friends. Emily. Every time you called me too sensitive because I asked for basic respect. He closed his mouth. Every time you acted like my work was pathetic because it didn't make enough money. I leaned forward. Every time you turned my support into something you resented me for. Jason's eyes dropped. Our marriage didn't die the night I saw Vanessa's text. I shook my head. It had been dying for a long time. I just hadn't admitted it yet. He stared at the table. Then he whispered, "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. Once I had. Or at least I had wanted to. Hatred had felt easier than grief. But that was gone too. No. Jason looked up quickly. His expression almost softened. Then I added, "I don't love you either." That landed harder. I could see it. "I don't need to hate you anymore." He swallowed. I spent a long time trying to prove I was worth loving. His eyes stayed on mine. I thought if I worked harder, complained less, supported you more, dressed better, stayed quieter, asked for less, you'd eventually remember why you married me. My voice stayed steady. That was my mistake. Your mistake. Yes. I thought love was something I could earn by becoming easier to live with. Jason's eyes filled. I continued. It isn't. I thought of Nathan. The first time I told him no to coffee. The way he simply accepted it. The night he told me I had choices. The way he never asked Noah to erase Rachel to make room for me. Real love isn't one person constantly proving they deserve to stay. Jason looked down. It's being with someone who doesn't need you to hurt yourself to make their life easier. I paused. And someone who notices when you're hurting before you have to beg. Jason closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he looked older. I'm sorry. I nodded. I believe you. His brows rose slightly. But forgiveness doesn't mean we get another version of the story. I know. No second chance. I know. No what if. His mouth twisted. I'm trying. I stood. My 20 minutes are up. Jason almost smiled. Of course they are. I picked up my bag. He looked at me one last time. Are you happy? That question surprised me. Yes. He nodded slowly. With him. With myself. Jason blinked. I smiled faintly. And yes, with him too. He looked away. I left before he could say anything else. For the first time in years, walking away from Jason did not feel like loss. It felt ordinary. That was how I knew I was finally free. A few days later, Linda asked if she could see me. I agreed. She didn't ask me to come to her house. She met me at a small cafe halfway between us. When she sat down, she looked nervous. I'm not here to ask you to forgive Jason. Good. She gave a weak smile. He told me you'd say something like that. I almost laughed. Linda folded her hands. I owe you an apology too. I didn't rush to make her feel better. She took a breath. I knew. My chest tightened. About Vanessa? Not everything. She shook her head. But I knew he was treating you badly. I stared at her. You told me to be patient with him. I know. You told me success was stressful. I know. You told me marriage had hard seasons. Her eyes filled. I know. I looked away. Linda whispered I was afraid. Of what? Losing him. She pressed her lips together. Jason is my only son. When I realized you two were falling apart, I thought if I criticized him too much, he'd pull away from me too. So you stayed quiet. Yes. I looked at her. And because you were afraid to lose your son, you let me believe I was crazy. Her face crumpled. Yes. For a moment I was angry all over again. Not the wild anger from 3 years ago. Something cleaner. More precise. I said, you don't get to call me your daughter now just because you regret what happened. I know. Her answer was immediate. That surprised me. Linda wiped under one eye. I'm not asking for that. Then what are you asking for? Nothing. She shook her head. I just needed to say I failed you. The words sat between us. Finally I said, you did. She nodded. I know. And Jason made his own choices. Yes. You didn't make him cheat. No. You didn't make him move money. No. You didn't make him lie about me. No. But you helped him believe he didn't have to face what he was doing. Linda took that in. Yes. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, I forgive you. Her eyes widened. But that doesn't mean we go back. I understand. We can be civil. That's more than I expected. For the first time, she smiled without crying. When we left, she hugged me once. Briefly. Not like a mother holding a daughter. Just two women acknowledging what had happened. That felt right. Jason's company survived. Barely. He sold one warehouse expansion before it was finished. Several managers left. He cut back growth plans. Noah once asked if that meant Jason was poor now. Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. I said no. Then what happened? He made bad business decisions. Noah thought about that. So consequences. Nathan looked at me. I looked at him. Yes, I said. Consequences. Vanessa moved out of the house she shared with Jason a few weeks later. Linda told me she had contacted a divorce attorney. I felt no victory. Mostly irony. When Jason had been broke, stressed, and terrified of failing, I had stayed. When his success cracked, Vanessa started checking exits. But that was no longer my lesson to teach him. He was finally living without someone else cleaning up the consequences. Christmas morning came quietly. Sophie tore into her gifts like wrapping paper had personally offended her. Noah sat on the floor pretending to be too old to care about presents while checking every box with his name on it. Nathan picked up a torn ribbon. Santa has a serious budgeting problem. Noah looked at him. You bought half of these. Nathan put a hand to his chest. Allegedly. I saw the charges on your phone. Nathan stared at him. Why were you looking at my phone? You asked me to change the music in the car. That feels like entrapment. I laughed. Sophie shouted, more presents. Nathan pointed at her. See, this is what unchecked capitalism looks like. She's two, I said. Exactly. No regulation. Noah rolled his eyes. Then when Nathan was distracted helping Sophie open a toy kitchen, Noah came over to me with a small box. This is for you. I smiled. You already gave me something. That was from Dad. This one's from me. I opened the box. Inside was a simple silver necklace. The pendant was small. 4 initials were engraved across it. ENGS. Emily. Nathan. Noah. Sophie. I stared at it. Noah immediately looked uncomfortable. I know it's not expensive. I looked up. What? I used my allowance. My eyes burned. How long did you save? 3 months. I pulled him into a hug. Oh, Noah. He stiffened for exactly 2 seconds before hugging me back. Then he groaned. Please don't cry. I'm not crying. You are. Sophie cries enough for everyone, he said. That made me laugh through the tears. Nathan looked over. What's happening? Nothing, Noah said quickly. Nathan walked closer. He saw the necklace. His eyebrows rose. Wow. Noah looked proud despite himself. Nathan put his hand out. Where's mine? Noah stared at him. What? My gift. I gave you socks. Those were clearly purchased under duress. Noah thought for a second, then pointed at me. Mom married you. Nathan blinked. Noah shrugged. That's your gift. I covered my mouth. Nathan looked personally offended. Excuse me? You're welcome. I started laughing. Sophie saw us and laughed too, even though she had no idea why. Nathan grabbed Noah around the shoulders. That is an outrageous level of confidence for someone who still needs me to drive him to soccer. Mom can drive. Traitor. Noah laughed. I touched the necklace at my throat. 3 years earlier, I had spent Christmas alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. I had looked at old photos and wondered what was wrong with me. Why hadn't I been enough? Why had the man I loved become embarrassed by the life we built together? I thought losing my marriage meant losing my future. I had been wrong. Jason leaving did not destroy my life. It ended a life in which I was constantly making myself smaller. I no longer measured love by how much pain I could absorb without complaining. I no longer believed being useful was the same as being valued. Nathan loved me without asking me to disappear inside his success. Noah had chosen to call me mom without anyone asking him to. Sophie had never known a version of me who apologized for taking up space. I looked at all 3 of them. My family. Not the family I had planned. The family I had built. 3 years earlier, Jason had looked me in the eye and said, being with you was the worst period of my life. For a long time I believed those words said something about me. Now I understood they said everything about him. Maybe those really had been the worst years of Jason's life. Not because I had made him miserable, but because during those years, he had someone who loved him before the money, before the title, before anyone cared who he was. And he had mistaken that love for something ordinary. He had thrown it away because he thought success meant never needing to remember who helped him survive failure. I touched the 4 initials around my neck. Nathan caught my eye. You okay? I smiled. Actually, yes. He smiled back. And this time I meant it completely. 3 years ago, I thought I was the one who had lost everything. Now I finally knew the truth. I had lost a marriage. Jason had lost the woman who would have stayed when there was nothing left to impress. And by the time he understood the difference, I had already found something far better. A life where nobody had to lose themselves to be loved.